Welcome back to Stand Up. I'm Pete Dominick. And every day we talk about all kinds of important issues that matter, we think, to you. Lately it's been a lot about the future of democracy and politics. Joining me now is a guy I met just a few weeks ago who I admire a great deal. He's many things, man. He's a media and political analyst. He's an author. He's got a PhD. He is an Emmy Award-winning public broadcaster, and I'm really happy to have him joining us. His new book is Lessons in Leadership. Steve Adubato is here. Hey, Steve, thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate it, man.
Most importantly, I'm a father of 4.
That is most importantly. Can we start with parenting?
Yes. In fact, I talk to our children all the time about empathy and compassion and caring for other people and owning your mistakes and being mature and, the stuff that is unfortunately not going on at 1600, is it Pennsylvania Avenue?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of truth to that in terms of, you tied that in pretty quickly.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
I went there way too quick.
No, it's fine.
By the way, it's great to be on the show. I should start with that.
No, it was great to be on your show as well. You do a great job, and I was really honored to be asked and fun to be interviewed by you. You have so many great guests on your show. But when it comes to parenting and teaching your kids those qualities that you just mentioned, do you do it by talking to them about it? Do you do it by showing them something? Do you do it by role modeling it? How do you teach empathy?
It's a great question.
Thank you.
So here's the thing, the way I look at it, and in this book, Lessons in Leadership, which I will plug multiple times during our time.
Go ahead.
So in the book, I talk about countless mistakes that I've made as a leader, as a father, as a husband. And my view of leadership is that people who say, I'm a great leader, here are the things that you need to do, here are the 5 keys to leadership because I'm the expert, ignore those people, run away from those people, I'm afraid of those people. In my book, you will find me talking about the fact that the greatest leaders are the ones who are the most self-aware, the ones who are constantly looking at themselves saying, not beating themselves up, but asking, where have I made mistakes? Where do I make mistakes? How do I get better? How do I understand myself? We were talking about right before we got in the air. Truly, the Daniel Goleman emotional intelligence concept.
Him. Love his work.
The guy's got it. And when I read Goleman, I thought to myself, emotional intelligence basically means being someone who wants to be the best human being he or she can be and cares about other people. But by doing that, you got to take a hard look in the mirror. And my point is this. In that book, Lessons in Leadership, I do, in fact, cop to a lot of stuff. Blaming other people, having a short temper, growing up in a family. I have a great father who is, 85 years of age,
wow.
But a very, very tough taskmaster who beat the living hell out of me growing up in a tough neighborhood, growing up in Newark, New Jersey, who, let me just say this, accomplished great things in his life. And I wrote the introduction about my dad. But what I learned about leadership was that very often you don't have to beat people down to get things accomplished. And I was learning, without getting into too much psychological detail, I'll see my therapist later today, that there are other ways to do it. But I talked about the mistakes I made in getting to where I am today. So which brings us back to Trump. I don't think there's any introspection. I don't think there's any self-reflection. So when I talk about our kids, I'll say, look, these are the things that make a great person, a good person, but I am not going to let you run away from the mistakes you make. We're going to try to own our stuff, and I'll start with me.
Let's stay with men and masculinity, though, because one of the qualities I admire you is everything you just said, your appreciation for Daniel Goleman's work and your own practice that you have and how you think about it. I also know that for your television show, you interviewed an author whose name I'm forgetting, but talks about toxic masculinity and all that. We're guys, we're of a certain age, of a certain time, we're straight, we're whatever we are. And with that comes a whole bunch of baggage, a whole bunch of expectations. But I find that there are different ideologies that men have in terms of the way that they relate to each other and the kind of people that they support and the kind of behaviors that they support. And I don't want to minimize it, but if I have to, for the sake of the conversation, there are those who spank and there are those who don't. There are those who believe in punishment as a source of changing behavior, and there are those who believe in kind of reward. And those of us who don't spank and don't punish, that is new. And that is not very well respected by those who don't. And I don't want to put labels any more than that on it, but talk about today's man and masculinity and how it's done I think we agree, a disservice to us as men, as parents, as husbands, as leaders.
So when you came on my PBS show, One-on-One, and you talked about your own view of it, and very often when I'm interviewing engaging, interesting people, while I'm asking questions, I'm thinking a lot about what they're saying. And you talked about having your own children, your own daughters, right?
Yeah, 2 daughters, 12 and 9.
Well, we have a 6-year-old daughter. As old as I am, I got a 6-year-old daughter. We have a 14 and 12-year-old boys, and also I have a 24-year-old son from my first marriage. But my point is this: I do think an awful lot about the way I grew up, and the toughness, the aggressiveness, the listen, we're not going to talk a whole lot.
Right.
I will communicate. My dad communicated by being awfully aggressive. Assertive is way too kind a word. And so I have come to the conclusion with a lot of struggle that it doesn't work. And if you think it does work to get whatever it is you want in that situation, the roadkill is too great. The pain and suffering is too great. For me to say I have figured out the best way, I haven't, but I'm trying to find a way and continue to find a way without being overly philosophical to be the best parent I can be by letting our kids know that I love them, I'll support them, but I'll also say I am concerned. And I just literally said this about one of our kids this morning, and I couldn't believe I said it. I grew up in a very tough urban ethnic neighborhood in Newark, New Jersey, which is another way of saying it was an all-Italian neighborhood. I said about one of our boys, I said, man, I said to my wife, wow, he's pretty soft. And I couldn't believe I said it. And what I meant was he had a little injury and he didn't want to play. And I said, what do you mean? And I said, he's soft. And my lack of empathy and wanting him to be tougher physically brought me all the way back. So to answer your question, I want to try to find the right balance between empathy, compassion, softness, being there, loving, and also not wanting to coddle them to the point where they can't handle the rough, nasty, crappy world out there sometimes.
Well, that's the concern. I mean, that's what a lot of, our parents' generation, our father's generation said. You got to be tough. The world isn't easy. I'm not going to make it easy for you. I'm going to hit you so you know how to take a punch, you know how to get back up. But what's great, obviously, about what you did there is that because of your work, because of your practice, I suspect, because of your education, you recognize, you are aware that you said that. Intellectually, yeah, not emotionally.
Intellectually, man, don't make me do this, Pete. Come on. You don't make me do this on the air.
Break it down. Come on, Oprah.
Come on, man. Hey. If I wanted to do Oprah, I can't say if I wanted to do Oprah, I would have, because she never asked.
Exactly. If I want to do Letterman, well, he's no longer. No, but I mean, there's this. We used to talk to veterans almost every week, and there's this idea that, when you come back from combat, when you've been in combat, that, you're battle hardened. But the real courage, I think, the real masculinity, the real toughness is confronting your demons. That's courage. That's terrifying. That's what therapy does.
See that couch over there?
Go get down there.
I'm about to get on that couch in about 2 seconds.
Talk to me about your feelings. That's so important.
Yeah. So vulnerability, insecurity, fears. Half the time I'm like, do I tell my wife what I'm actually feeling? Or if she finds out what I'm really feeling, am I going to be that masculine hot guy that she met, 18 years ago, or do I lose all that?
Come on.
You get my point. And so half the time you're trying to hide it because you think you lose. I mean, so my point is, you have to try to find that balance. I don't know what it is, but I want our kids to know, all of them. And by the way, for me to say I parent our sons exactly the same way I parent our 6-year-old daughter, it's just not true. I want to try to find the right balance, and we're going to keep working at it. But I will say this. I will say parenting in the age of Trump, I'm going to keep bringing it back to the president, is challenging because there are constant things that are happening around us that provide examples and opportunities to teach. Not preach, but teach. about empathy and compassion, caring for other people. And I don't mean in some sort of super soft liberal to the point. I mean liberal in a negative way, liberal to the point where it's unrealistic and so progressive that it's not even grounded in reality.
Mm-hmm.
I mean like mean-spirited,
right?
Not American, not constitutional, not who we are as a civilized people.
And
it's important.
I'm looking down at my phone because what you said what you just said was exactly what I wrote to my wife. I certainly wasn't planning on reading a text to my wife, which is intensely personal.
I thought you were just bored and you're looking at your iPhone.
I was worried about that, but no, you said this and I was like, holy shit. Yeah. I don't want to tell my wife this, but, I'll tell my whole audience. I'm really honest with them. But I wrote every morning we have a text message, connection. Just tell her what's up, what's going on. And I wrote this morning. I go, I'm having some intense anxiety issues like I haven't experienced before. I've had 2 nights worth of nightmares, and I haven't had a nightmare in a long time. It's almost entirely about the state of the world and this Trump-related shitstorm. There's no way I can obviously get away from it. I think I might need to get back into therapy right away. I didn't want. Gonna cry. I didn't want to tell you because I know you're dealing with the same issue to a different extent, your own process, and I want to always be your rock.
Damn.
And it's like, I didn't want to share with my partner this because I didn't want her to see me weak, although I'm so vulnerable, which is what she was attracted to me for in the beginning. But at the same time, it's like she's dealing with the same thing I'm dealing with, and I want to stay strong and stay optimistic. And yeah, I gave up this morning. I said, I can't. You got to know I'm fucked up right now.
Did you give up, or did you give up in a moment? Do you know the difference?
I didn't give up. Did I say I gave up?
Didn't give up. Yeah, you did.
I just showed vulnerability, which is what she wants, and of course she comes back with a phrase that is, it's private, but I don't mind saying it because maybe somebody else can use it. We've been saying it since we met each other. She goes, I got you.
She got your back.
Yeah. That's always the deal.
That's pretty great.
And we've been having stupid fights lately about interior decorating.
Hey,
there was one.
That's my wife's.
The other fight is that this is a good one though, a good parenting fight, and I think that our daughters are too overscheduled with extracurriculars, and it's a balance, and so we're talking about that. So the good fights.
Yeah, well, we have one that my wife thinks that I am too, quote, tough and aggressive with our 14-year-old son Nick, who she thinks is very much like me. Back off.
Yeah.
He's only 14.
Right.
Anyway, let's not go there.
Well, it's important to go there this is what I love about having this conversation with you. And I'm sure that people who watch your show and who listen and who've read your book, Lessons in Leadership, Steve Adubato, PhD, it's appealing to hear men talk this way. And I have cultivated an audience of like-minded men. So who can do really tough, manly things, who are heterosexual, who are classic men, but they feel their feelings, they're aware of it, they work on themselves, all the things that you said and that you write about.
I'm curious about that. A therapist once said to me one time, not that I saw him, it was just a professional thing. That was a joke. Of course I saw him. So he was talking about this men's group. And he said, why don't you come to this men's group? I go, I'm not going to a men's group. Yeah. He goes, why not?
He said it's at the steam room in Hawaii. But anyway.
Yeah, how did you heard? So I said, I'm not going to the men's group. He said, why? I said, some people that recognize me. Because first of all, you're not Matt Lauer. They're not going to recognize you.
Yeah.
So I said, I don't know. I'm not going to. So anyway, I didn't. And here's the point. I do think sometimes, what the heck would it be like to be with some other guys and sit there and actually put this shit out there?
I am so on the same page with you. My therapist told me the exact same thing.
Where do you go?
Men that talk about parenting. I don't go. I never went. But it's so weird because we hang out with our bros. I mean, I used to. I don't have that group anymore. But it's usually you hang out, you do, quote, manly things. To sit and to talk about your feelings.
Okay.
And your parenting and your marriage.
My wife is
we
going
don't
to kill
do
me
that.
for talking about this, as will some of my friends. And I knew I was supposed to be talking about the book and Trump and whatever else, but this is more interesting.
This is better.
So here's the deal. I actually said to my wife, because I got guys I grew up with in Newark, old school friends. I mean, real old school friends. I love these guys. But half the time when I'm hanging with them, I love them. But it's like, hey, we're going to go so-and-so. We're going to go out and party and do whatever. And I love hanging with them.
Yeah.
But too often it winds up in certain situations that don't work for me.
Yeah.
Because I often tell my wife, part of my problem is I'm too into you. I know and by the way, I hope she's not listening right now. I don't even want her to hear this. I don't want her to hear this.
Why?
Yeah, because that's weak.
No.
Yeah, because in the neighborhood,
beautiful. In
the neighborhood, guys would be saying, you tell your wife that stuff? So here's my point. I was saying to my wife, it wouldn't it be great if I could hang with some of my friends who I'm close with, not engage in certain stuff that doesn't work for me. Play a little golf. I don't know if you play golf. I like it. You know.
I mean,
takes too much time, but you know.
I think we should wrap up the interview now.
I knew that was going there.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Listen, I don't play a trump anymore.
You think it's a sport?
Cut it out, man. I work out every day.
You think golf's a sport?
I'm not. Listen, I'm not going there with you. I said I play golf.
It's a yes/no question, Steve.
Yes. Ask me again.
Is golf a sport?
It's a thing to do with guys. So, anyway, the point I'm making is that it would be great to be able to hang with a group of guys, have some fun, talk about some real stuff, not super heavy, but just in a safe environment.
The thing that's
hard to find, man.
I totally agree with you, but it's hard to find. But I'll tell you that the great thing about this show is I have cultivated an audience of men who want to talk about. It's two kind of non-discriminating feelings. Their marriages, their relationships,
Kids.
and especially with their families. I have guys reaching out and asking me for advice, by the way.
They ask you.
And I'm like, I don't know. Your kids are older than mine. You give me advice. But the point is, we are talking. Women always talk about their relationships and about their kids.
Places.
We should too. I reached out to a friend of mine, just almost as a trial balloon, to tell him something about a conversation I had with my daughter to see what he thought. And we engaged, and it was great. He disagreed with what I had done, the choice I had made.
Yeah.
But I loved what his input was. I love that conversation. No judgments, just what do you think of this?
What about this? So Pete Dominick organizes a cruise of guys. I'm only half joking.
I'm some kind of meeting, some type of get together.
Right
absolutely.
off the Hudson.
One thing leads to another. We start kissing. Nobody judges.
That's what
just
I'm
guys
talking about.
just kissing. Straight guys making out, Steve.
Listen, it's not exactly where I was going.
Whatever happens, we shave each other's backs, then we play a little golf.
Let me tell you something. My social media team was saying, Steve, we're going to find a clip
I'd rather make out with a guy than golf with a guy, I think.
You hate golf that
God,
much?
I think it's just terrible.
Why don't we get off that topic? Because things were going so well between us.
Well, let's talk about, though, you want to talk about the commander-in-chief and what kind of a man he is, what kind of a role model he is, because I think that's one of the worst problems is that he is leaders' role model behavior.
How about most of my male friends, Pete, voted for him?
Yeah.
Most of my male friends like him. Most of my male friends.
The 10 clan meetings.
Here's the irony.
What's their deal?
I love these guys.
Sure.
I grew up with these guys. They hated Hillary Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
I was not a fan of Hillary Clinton's,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't hate her. I had problems with her. But I'll say this. I didn't think there was any choice. It was pretty clear cut to me. But I would avoid and continue to avoid engaging some of my closest male friends in conversations about Trump because I find them to be unbelievably irrational. Because just let's say the Billy Bush tape, right?
Grabbed by the puss.
I said to these guys, listen, we've grown up together. We're hardcore guys in a lot of ways. Have you ever heard any of us and all the shit we've ever said? Anybody? Oh, come on. No, seriously. Have you ever heard anyone say...
But that's because of the way that they probably heard it. The way I heard it was, I will take sex. I will take a woman. Not... Here's what guys do. We talk about the
She's
sex
hot.
that we had. She's hot. I want to fuck her. All that stuff.
All good.
But here's what I never say. I'd like to have sex with that woman, whether or not she'd like to have sex with me.
And by the way, she lets me.
And she let me, right.
That's sick. That is sick.
Yeah, it's
demented.
depraved.
Horrible,
illegal.
And by the way, I tried to tell our son, who I thought was old enough to understand it. I don't even if I ever heard anything. He goes, Dad, I would never. And I wanted to understand how horrible it was, but I also wanted to try to explain to my friends, like, that's not, oh, come on, it's just talk. And I lost it over that. And I find I'm zero tolerance on that. And so my point is that's part of a long line with the president of a level of insensitivity, of a level of crudeness that, as we're talking about manliness, if you will, or what it means to be a man, he's a terrible role model. He's a horrific role model. He's an embarrassment. He's not a strong man in any way.
No, he's not.
And,
he's insecure.
And so the idea of being the alpha male to me and his need to put down any other truly strong person to feel better about himself. Listen, like I said, my doctorate's not in psychology, but it's in around the neighborhood. It's not, doesn't take a genius to figure it out. The level of insecurity that he exhibits with that level of power, that combination and the decision-making executive order ability he has is scary, Pete. And so this is even less political for me than it is emotional. Yeah. I'm trying not to be emotional about it because it's not my job.
Right. Well, I'm going to push back on that, and I got to wrap, but here's my idea. Steve Adubato, Lessons in Leadership is the book. I didn't think this conversation was going to go this way, and I don't know that you can do this with your show, but I'd be really interested in developing that group of men, not off the air, but right here. Like, next time you come in, bring a couple guys. I'll bring a guy, and we'll hook up with them on the air.
We'll
make out with them.
No, we're not.
Then you'll go golf with them. Have that conversation that we're talking about having right here, and that's the way that we lead. That's the way that we role model. I mean, I think that would be a phenomenal idea. Obviously, we're going to do it off the air, continue to do it, but to have that conversation with a bunch of guys to demystify masculinity and to talk about what it really means to be a good guy, a good husband, a good father, a good friend. We need a lot of that. And I think you'd be a great guy to have in that conversation. I really appreciate you stopping by, and I appreciate becoming friends with you. It's been it's cool, man. I'm excited.
I appreciate you.
It's made me feel good. I wasn't feeling good. Now I feel good.
P.S. I just want to say this. I hope he's a good father and a grandfather and everything else. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean, a good role model as a man leading our country. That's all I know.
Yeah.
I just want to be fair. I don't know what he's like the other way privately.
Well, ask his daughter, Tiffany. Steve Adubato, Lessons in Leadership.
No mercy, man.
Seems to be some issues there. Thank you so much for coming in, man.
My honor.
Really appreciate you joining us. I look forward to having you back. Thank you very much.
You got it.